Right, Ireland v Italy then, and I think that is in order. Well played, Ireland. Although actually, I think the first place I want to start is a little mention for the Italian player Menoncello. Just seeing his face when he was walking off, clearly with an injury, it looks like he's maybe got a torn bicep. Knowing his World Cup is over, this is one of the things that's so cruel. And I said this on an earlier video, I just feel irrationally anxious every time there's a player that looks like he might be remotely hurt. And there's a few Irish players who looked like they had knocks tonight. Jack Conan was in a little boot. I think that looked precautionary. Same with Craig Casey and Jimmy O'Brien. I hope they're all okay. But that's so cruel to any player that misses out this close, especially Menoncello having had such a good game and turning into such an important part of an improving and very young Italian squad. So that was a real shame. Just wanted to start there. But other than that, fair play, Ireland. For the first 20 minutes, you thought, oh, this is going to be a bit like England-Wales, error-strewn and poor on quality. But Ireland are class. They've just feel. Do you know what it feels like? It just feels like the confidence which we saw England lack. Ireland just have ingrained. They just feel cool. They don't panic when things aren't going well. It's like, all right, okay, let's just reboot the system and go again. And it even got to the point, I don't know what you thought about this, but it felt to me like Andy Farrell was almost deliberately mixing things up to see how the players would cope. Ireland are at the stage where they're not having to start from scratch at all or build anything particularly. They're at the tinkering stage of things. And so Andy Farrell's just actually putting his players in situations where he's like, oh, okay, well, let's see how they cope with this. And that a team that's going to do well in the World Cup. I mean, that's what you need, those kind of experiences. Although I have to say, I bet as we get within a month of the Rugby World Cup and the first 15, 20 minutes, I bet a lot of Irish fans were going, we're getting into World Cup mode. I know it's going to take a while for Ireland fans to keep feeling optimistic about the World Cup, but I think you should. That was a positive showing, I think. By the way, I'm Tim, this is Egg Chasers, and I'm not in my normal surroundings. I've nicked my mate's studio while I'm staying at his house, but I still wanted to make sure I brought you the videos because I am that excited about the World Cup. If you appreciate the videos and if you love your rugby, hit subscribe and leave your comments. And I'll ask this question. Who has played themselves into a World Cup jersey, or equally, who has played themselves out of a World Cup squad spot? This is probably more the case with Ireland, where there are some big there's some big questions and spots to open up. So tell me if you agree with these, because these are the few that I thought. Actually, no. Before I get onto that, I'll ask you that question. Who's played themselves into a squad spot? Who's played themselves out? But I've got to talk about Caelan Doris. I mean, you check out the videos. I've been talking about him for a long time now. He's one of my favourite rugby players. That guy is ridiculous. He's that good that Caelan, I know you've played 7 for Leinster, but just because we might end up needing you if something happens to Josh van der Fleer, could you give it a go at international level? Yeah, sure, I'll give it a go and be world class as a 7. Caelan Doris, when he wears 8 on his back, is world class as a ball carrying link player. When he wears 7 on his back, he is a world class jackler at the breakdown, support runner. The guy is different gravy, and I absolutely love him. We are living in a Caelan Doris universe. He's awesome. But on to those players then who are hoping to make sure they're on the plane to France. Let's start with that 10 shirt. Jack Crowley, I don't know what you thought. I felt he was really comfortable in a good way. Just looked very calm and assured, managed the game. Even when it was quite bitty in the early stages, Jack Crowley was a big part of getting Ireland back on into their groove a little bit. And I think he's absolutely going to the World Cup now. What was really interesting though towards the end, when Kieran Frawley came on for Jimmy O'Brien, I was like, okay, well, who's going to be 15? And they sort of switched between the two. Like Andy Farrell was doing some kind of total rugby thing. I thought that was really interesting to watch. And it made me wonder, could Jack Crowley and Kieran Frawley both be going to the Rugby World Cup? And you kind of think they're covered in those positions enough that they wouldn't need to. And I still think if you had to push me, I'd say Jack Crowley's going, Kieran Frawley isn't. However, I don't know. just putting it out there, the fact they operated well together made me wonder. But probably Crowley is going to get the nod there. One person that was notable by his absence from this squad today was Kieran Treadwell. And I wonder if we saw the reason why. Because Joe McCarthy, I don't know what you felt on this. I was really impressed by him. I thought he was really good. Ball carrier, just graft. And I wonder if he's jumped ahead of Kieran Treadwell in the pecking order. And that's why he was on the field today. And Joe McCarthy could well be going to France. And Kieran Treadwell is missing out. That's one thing I thought. And the other one, Tom Stewart, URC's top scorer. He came onto the field for Rob Herring. Didn't really have quite enough of an opportunity to maybe edge Rob Herring out. Maybe it's the next World Cup for Tom Stewart, but a little bit like France earlier, it's Tom Stewart's a guy that most other nations would love to have in their squad. So if Ireland have the luxury of being able to leave him at home waiting for some injuries, isn't that amazing? And then Stockers, Crichton, Cubed and Keith Earls. Two brilliant servants to Ireland. Keith Earls hoping to go out with a swan song. Jacob Stockdale hoping to get back in and recapture some of those former glories. Who got the better of that situation? It looks like one of the two of them will be going to the World Cup. For the reason I was talking about Kieran Frawley, maybe it's neither of them. Could Calvin Nash get in ahead of both of them? I don't know. What do you think? I thought with Stockdale, did it not look like a guy that he cared so much that he was back wearing green again? He was trying so hard that it almost went over into trying too hard sometimes. There was sometimes you watched it and you thought, well, Andy Farrell's getting his pen out and he's scribbling a name out and writing Jacob Stockdale down. And then the next moment you thought, well, there you go, he's just shredded Cubed's plane ticket. I really like Jacob Stockdale. I don't know. He did some things. I think the review video will be interesting. Andy Farrell will be able to see, and his coaches will be able to see through all of that stuff, and they'll know what they're after. Is that Jacob Stockdale? I think that's the biggest question mark when you look at the selection. Who's going to get a spot in the back three for Ireland? So who is it? Earls, Stockdale, Nash, or someone else as a 33rd man? That's one of the toughest ones for me. One person that really impressed me, Craig Casey. Is he pushing Conor Murray for the number 2 spot for Ireland? I just like the pace he injected at it, and we know the speed that Jameson Gibson Park can play with. And in Craig Casey, there's someone that can match that. Conor Murray's very much a kind of, you want someone to come on, just calmly finish a game that you're ahead for 20 minutes. Conor Murray is your man. He's been there and done it. So it's just a great place to be that they've got the options. Over to Italy, I thought Lamaro made a big difference when he came on. Menoncello, I've written it down. Menoncello looks an awesome player. So sad to see him go off injured. But the one thing you always get from Italy is an amazing anthem. And it's one of the best sights in rugby, is seeing the Italian team belting out with more passion than you've ever seen their national anthem. I loved it. I think there's a lot of room to improve for both teams. I think there's enough that they can feel positive about for both teams. I think for Ireland that they'll go with a first choice team against England next weekend against Twickenham, and 2 teams there in very, very different places. And I suspect green might still be the colour then. So let me know what you think in the comments, particularly on those big selection points, and with the World Cup squads being announced soon, who has earned it and who has lost their spot. Get in the comments on that one. Hit subscribe. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next video.